If I'm working on my CRM or if I'm working on moving data from one place to another, that's not bringing revenue in physically right now. So I can see that it does go to the bottom of the list. Maybe moving my data isn't be high on the priority list today.
Yeah.
And then a year goes by and here we are again.
Like me, you, anybody will never convince a broker otherwise, and I don't plan to. I don't want to, because I don't think that's a winning argument ever.
If a brokerage says you need to use this CRM or this is a great CRM, go use it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Why should I use it? Who's going to help me set it up? What is the support like? There's a lot more questions.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. Today, I speak with Sara Hynes from Western Broker Services. Sara and I, we've worked together for a long time. At Western Broker Service, of course, it's a great service supporting brokers in a ton of different functions. Really, in this episode, what we get into is just how her business has been built, really based on trust and just referrals in the industry and how important that is. Then we quickly transition into, of course, the technology space, how she sees tech adoption and how she makes it easy, how sometimes new systems seem really big and very complicated, how she's able to see that, break it down, and make it much more bite-sized. She also offers her insights on how she evaluates new technology, what excites her, and what she sees for the future. We cover a lot of stuff. It's a fun episode. We'll see you on the other side. Hey, Sara, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. Great to have you here. Yeah, we've been doing this podcast for like a year now, I think. And I am on, it's almost like an admission of guilt, maybe a little bit, but I feel like we should have had you on like way earlier. Like, you feel like you should have been.
I'm not going to be offended. It's no big deal. It's fine.
Okay, you'll just mark that down in your little black book, an X against my name. That's it.
Right.
So,
That's okay.
Cool. Well, listen, I think we go way back. I think in terms of just with Blue and how you've helped we have just a ton of mutual clients. But I think for this conversation, I want to start maybe a little bit zoomed out, not just in like the Blue tech space, but just more generally, I think, and you can correct me where I'm wrong, I think for you, a huge part of your entire business is just kind of helping brokers delegate. I don't know if that's really the right way to put it, but I'm going to use it for now. And I always say, for delegation to kind of take tasks that are maybe not the highest value tasks, you need to either give it to teams, that can be people on your team, assistants, virtual assistants, team or tech, right? Or to a system that can kind of do it for you. And you kind of help with both of those. And so, yeah, I guess, first of all, do you kind of agree with that notion that, hey, this delegation thing needs to happen? And I guess, is that sometimes we, fight an uphill battle sometimes to do that. I feel that sometimes a lot of people we work with, they really want to hold on to really every part of their business. And sometimes it slows them down, doesn't give them that opportunity to scale. So, I guess there's a lot of ideas there swirling around, but I guess I'll just kind of throw that back over the net to you and say, of all of that, is that kind of the right framing, how you think about how you help brokers? And do you kind of deal with that same, hesitancy?
I definitely see your point for sure. Delegation is a great word. I choose support, but
okay.
Delegation is good
too.
All
right. Well, we'll do support. Fair enough.
Yeah, I do think there's definitely hesitancy around anybody giving up a portion of their business or help supporting their business, especially being in the brokering world, in the broker channel. Essentially, we kind of run our own businesses on this side of things. So giving up a piece of your business and that trust is hard when you're not used to it. Top of that, we're also a virtual assistant company. So now not only am I in your office with you, but I'm likely not even in the same province. We do have a team across Canada, but depending on who you're working with, there's a large trust that we're building with our clients in there. And I can understand where a broker would be hesitant to join a virtual assistant company for sure. But you're absolutely right. We do need to delegate or have support for those types of tasks because a broker is better spent time on gaining new clients or underwriting their files and can delegate or have support in their business for other things, such as marketing, email campaigns, and payroll, admin tasks, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I read this study somewhere where like, I don't know, they hook wires to your brain. I don't know how these studies work, but they put wires somewhere on people's heads and then they like flashed up pictures, right? Just random pictures. And they measured like the emotional response. And they would flash like pictures of like your family and like your kids and like there'd be some response. And then they do like for business owners, like a logo of their business or whatever. And it would be, I wouldn't say the exact same, but like pretty close emotional response to like, their kid. And so, it's kind of, we were just talking about this actually just before the podcast, but it's like, sending your kid off to whatever school is like, it's kind of like the same thing, right? Of, hey, if I'm going to take this
Totally.
piece of my business and give it to someone else, that's a big move, right? It is for a lot of people. And I think so. And I think one word that you used, which I thought was interesting, was the trust piece, right? It's like, okay, we really have to work to build that trust. I think it's, the case for you and your business. I think it's always the case for brokers. At the end of the day, that's their job, is to build trust with their clients. I guess, how do you do that? Like, is there like a formula you guys follow? Do you kind of like start small and build up? Like, how do you feel you guys really earn the trust of your clients? Like, do you have a specific formula, or do you just feel, hey, we do good business, we do good work? Like, how do you kind of work through that, I guess, gauntlet of getting from new client to like a very trusted long-term relationship?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great question. And actually, I do get this question a bit when our new clients do come on. And we've been extremely lucky as a company, which we've been around now for 16 years, that all of our business really does come from referrals.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I think right off the bat, having a referral source within your office or within a friend or, just even within the industry does help our company in kind of stepping that, first level
Yeah.
of trust coming together. And then we build that trust moving forward with our service and the standard that we uphold.
Yeah. Yeah. Referrals they're so powerful, right? I was just at like the Dustin's conference last week, and someone came on stage talking about sales, and they said the three parts of your sales strategy. Oh God, I'm going to forget number one, number two, but it was number one was stories. Like, yeah, tell good stories. Okay, great. Number two, I'm blanking on, so shows my memory. But the number three was referrals, right? I think for the reason you just said, right? Like, it skips so much. And I think a lot of, mortgage brokers we're talking to right now, we talked about this yesterday, it's a little bit slower on the referral side with realtors for a bunch of reasons. So people are starting to maybe go to social media and try different avenues, but they're trying to treat a social media, a random online person, like they would a referral from a realtor. It's completely different because you don't have that trust, right? There's a lot of inherent trust just by the nature of,
Totally.
hey, I trust this realtor. This is the client saying, hey, I trust this realtor, so I'm going to trust this broker. That same thing doesn't happen necessarily online. So the fact that you guys have been able to do it obviously probably gets you to a huge head start. And then I guess, what's the reaction? Maybe that hesitancy I talked about, where people are like, I don't know, at first, it's my baby, how do I hand it off? But I mean, I guess the question is, when people start with you, do they usually expand services, right? Do they usually say, oh,
Yeah.
shoot, you know what? Okay, I can hand this off and things won't blow up. Let's start doing more. What does that typically look like for you?
Honestly, Tom, that's exactly what it is. We'll
Yeah.
start just doing newsletters or just email campaigns, or maybe it's just a busy time for the broker, a busy month. So they need help with a couple of signing packages or a couple of min tasks. And then it's, oh, okay, well, that went really well. Okay, now here's a little bit more and a little
Yeah.
bit more until, we're in a complete seamless process and we're regularly working together as a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Is there one, it sounds like it kind of, where do you usually start, I guess, more on like the admin side and then kind of expand from there, or it's just different for everybody?
Everybody's different. Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
needs are a little bit different. I mean, I've been working together for a long time. We obviously have a lot of referrals back and forth, and I have a lot of clients that come that just need CRM help,
Yeah.
which, we do set up some drip campaigns and we walk through that and what that looks like. And then that a lot of times opens up a conversation, because generally in those conversations of setting up a CRM, it's, do you have a newsletter blast? Are you sending out a Bank of Canada? Do
Yeah.
you have social media that we can, kind of connect all of those together? And that opens up a more conversation of, oh, well, you did this. Okay, can you send that newsletter? Can you send these Bank of Canada? Can you
Mm,
send rate announcements up to my realtors? So it kind of grows naturally, I think, that way.
yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Interesting. Well, yeah, okay, that was, I guess, a bit more broad, but maybe let's double click down more into the tech side of things. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about, when I just wrote an article in Canadian Mortgage Trends on this, actually, was just about kind of just like the frustration around tech that exists, right? And I don't know if you feel this or see this, but I feel like there's kind of like two worlds brokers live in terms of tech. There's like the techie person who is like, I've implemented every piece of tech and I love it and I couldn't live without it and blah, blah, blah. You know how that story goes. And maybe I'm probably guilty of that. And then there's the other side, which is I've been told I got to do tech. I've tried to do it. I can't do it. I'm not a tech person. It's frustrating to me. And it's kind of like an interesting thing because, those people are still obviously very competitive with their business. It's not like because of their inability to maybe do all these tech things, they've just been competed out of the business. They still have great businesses. And I think that's probably just because they have great relationships with their clients. But I guess more just taking a step back of how do you see the same dynamic, and what kind of, in your mind, explains that, I guess? Like, why do we have these two different camps? Is there like a single reason, or is it a bunch of things? What's kind of your thinking on that?
I think honestly, it just comes down to personal preference. I know
Okay.
that I have to live in a tech world. Do I like my notepad and paper? Yes, I do. I
Okay.
force myself to live in both worlds because of my job. But
Like
I
when
think
you
more
say
than anything,
me, are you saying like yourself? Like,
personally,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay.
I have a notebook. I'm not going to lie to you. It's beside me every
Yeah,
day.
so
It's
do
a pen
I.
and paper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do
it's a
too.
pen and paper notebook.
Yeah, I do too.
But we both live in the
Yeah.
tech world, and knowing that we have to be adaptable. We have to be adaptable, you and I, because of the industry that we're in for our
Mm.
careers. Brokers don't have to be adaptable and live in both
Why not?
worlds,
Why not?
because the ones that don't live in the tech world have those great relationships. And to your point, have a super successful business without living in a complete automated, entirely tech world.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, so it's kind of just the nature of the industry, right? Where it's like, okay, tech is good. It can give you like a little bit of a boost, but it's not like essential, right? It's not like, hey, I'm going to fail if I don't have that. Do you feel that's going to change anytime in the future? Like, do you feel that's always going to be the case? How do you feel like, I guess, as you look forward, like, is that, for any broker who feels like, because I think there's also some anxiety, I guess, people in that second camp are like, okay, I haven't implemented tech. I feel fine. Like I still have a great business, but I keep getting told every conference I go to, every presentation that I sit in, it's people telling me, I got to do tech. I got to do tech. I got to do tech just to survive, right? Just to survive in this industry. And I guess that's just the extension of the thought is, do you think that's true, right? Is that going to be with AI or all these different things that we keep hearing about? People will be forced to do it or not necessarily? What's kind of your thinking on that?
I don't think they'll be forced to do it. I think you're
Yeah.
just naturally going to see people gravitate to that first camp more, and that second camp will naturally get smaller. I don't
Small.
think
Yeah. Just,
I don't think you're going to
yeah.
force people to do it. If they haven't done it and their business is successful, then it's a pretty hard argument to say you have to do it
Yeah.
to be successful when you're already successful. I think
Yeah.
naturally you're just going to see that camp have smaller brokers in it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to be able to maybe scale and grow as much. Sure. And I think another big thing for me, how I think about it is, I think there's a lot of, big tech promises and things like that. But I think often the stumbling point for a lot of people is just like the implementation, like just getting started, right? Like just getting into a
Well,
system. Yeah.
I think if you're a broker currently and you're going to live in one of these two camps
Yeah.
and you need to move to the more tech side of life,
Yeah.
it's hard to take on. It's hard to take on any CRM and have a business. And I've joked before that I have an entire career built off of maintaining CRM systems. It's unrealistic to
hilarious.
think that a
Yeah.
broker can do it by themselves. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
which is an interesting point. But to your point, if you're a new broker coming into the industry, then only learning the tech side of things isn't a drastic change, because you're learning right from the beginning of this is how it works and this is what you've been taught, and you've been taught that tech is extremely important and you've always thought that way. Then you're never going to live in the camp that had less tech.
Yeah, right. It's for those people coming in, it's like, I've always just lived in the tech world. When I started my brokerage, I got the things, I got the CRMs, I got all these different things. And so, it's just a natural progression as my business scales.
A great example actually of
Yeah.
that is when I am talking to new clients, we talk to brokers who have been a broker for, let's say, 10 to 12 years. And super important aspect to them that they want to know that we can handle or take over for them is sending birthday cards, sending physical mail out
Yeah.
cards, sending their Christmas cards to their database, which
Yeah.
we send a astronomical amount every year.
Yeah.
And those brokers that have been a broker for years want that. And it's super important to them. When I have a new broker that's been a broker for, let's say, like less than 3 years,
Yeah.
and we're talking about other services and how we can help them, it's mind boggling that we send out almost 20,000 Christmas cards a year.
Wow.
because who gets physical mail anymore?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's, if you've always lived in the tech world, you didn't consider
I just not even like a
putting
thought,
a
right?
putting
Yeah.
a stamp on an envelope and sending it.
I honestly wouldn't like know where to even get a stamp. So I'm in that camp maybe. But what's your maybe just a quick sidebar, because I'm just curious 'cause you brought it up. What's your opinion on that? Like, do you feel that the physical mail is a good lead generating, relationship building thing? Do you feel like it's just maybe an anachronism, like something from an older time? What kind of results do you see when you send out those cards?
I mean, a personal preference, and every broker is going to see a little bit of a different result within their own business. I personally don't love to see a letter be sent.
Okay.
I feel like it's, if you physically think about going to get the mail, that feels like a bill, or it feels like the newspaper, it feels like a flyer. It doesn't really stand out, and it's important to stand out when it comes to marketing. I
Interesting.
love a handwritten card, and
Yeah.
I love a branded postcard. They stand out. They feel different. We do have a ton of clients that physically mail things, gift cards, lotto tickets,
Yeah.
and we don't get those in the mail anymore. So when you get them, I do think it stands out a little bit more, and you're left with like a little bit more of a memory for your client, opposed to
Yeah.
a letter that was
Yeah.
popped in the recycling bin.
Yeah. No, that's such a good point. Yeah. Like the printed mail is just, what does that really accomplish? It's as good as an email. But yeah, a quick story there. I talked to someone at the same conference. I think he's a client of yours, and he'll remain unnamed for the purpose of the podcast. But he talked about the scratch cards, where he just said, I spend $5 a year, once a year on their birthday, sent it. And this person like came back to me after I lost them to the bank. I just kept sending the lotto tickets. And then 5 years later, they renewed with me, and it was like $1 million mortgage. And it was like, that math's made a lot of sense. It's like the commission.
That math does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like the commission I made on that is just like,
Yeah, that's $6 a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. Right.
You got to add in the stamp in the card, lotto ticket, $6 or $7.
Yeah. No kidding.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's an okay ROI there. But well, going back to, without going too far down that rabbit hole, going back to the CRM thing, I think it's an interesting one, and maybe just to, because obviously we're in the CRM game a bit. But do you feel that, I guess, companies like ours, tech platforms, really should be doing more to help that implementation? Like you talked about, what you said is like, you build a whole career, you have a whole job built around just, setting up CRMs and supporting these CRMs. How can you expect a broker who's already got a full-time business to do the same thing? It's very difficult. And I agree. It's something we think about a lot. So yeah, just curious your opinion. Like, do you think that is the responsibility of maybe the tech platform to come in and say, here, maybe some more resources or an easier way to get set up? Do you feel that that's, on each individual broker more to just kind of really say, how am I going to, make these types of projects a success? Is it maybe at the brokerage level, brokerages coming in and saying, hey, this is how we're going to support our brokers be successful with CRMs? We've seen that a bit. I guess maybe that's the question. Where's the responsibility lie to make this tech adoption a little bit easier? Where's the right place that you think we need to focus as an industry?
Honestly, I think it's on everybody. I think everybody at a certain point does have to take responsibility. The broker, you have to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you can't be expected
what do you mean
to just
you have to ask
presented
questions?
this information.
What do you mean by
let's say
that?
if a brokerage says you need to use this CRM, or this is a great CRM, go use it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Why should I use it? Who's going to help me set it up? What is the support like? There's a lot more questions than, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go get that subscription and carry on.
Yeah.
To that point, I do think it's then on the brokerage to, if you're going to recommend any CRM or their own CRM, this is what you're going to use. This is why you're going to use it. And here's how we're going to support you.
Yeah.
And having those answers as well. And unfortunately, it's run into me quite a few times with our team that a broker has been with a CRM for years, many years, and has just kind of been like, almost, for lack of a better term, limping along and getting by, but doing the bare minimum that the platform can do.
Yeah.
And then, they find out about us through Facebook or social media, or just within talking with people in their office.
Yeah.
And then they reach out and they say, wow, why didn't I know about you? Like, I don't know. I'm out here doing my best, man. I'm just doing what I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of a funny aspect, I guess, that everybody kind of needs to take a little bit of responsibility. If you're going to use a CRM, we need to ask questions and point everybody in the right direction. Essentially, we're all in this industry together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting. I think it's, I think one thing I always struggle with, I think it's the same point of, asking questions and understanding these types of things better is I've always run up against the issue of like, what does a CRM even mean, right? Like, I think that's something like I think or it still is a pretty big where it's like, hey, it's just these post close emails, and it does do that, but there's obviously a lot more it can do, and without going down all the things that a system like that can do, it comes back to your original point, like ask questions, right? It's like, okay, well, let's push, let's see, okay, I am signing up for these platforms and CRM or whatever else you're using, your submission platform, if you're using a DocuSign, Calendly, what else can I accomplish with this, right? What else can I do? And, I think it's important at least to be curious about these types of things. Every platform is only going to add more and more features and be able to do more and more. That's just the nature of these things. They're always going to try to add features to provide more value, but it's ultimately up to the user to see these new features, adopt them, and accrue that value to their own business.
That's
Go
an
ahead. Yeah.
interesting point. And we actually I guess I run into this quite a bit where, especially a new client, well, I use this platform for this, then I use this one for this, then I use this one for submission, but I use this one for mass mail out, then I use this one to keep myself organized. And you almost get to the point where there are so many options. Why are we using all of them? Because now it's taken
Yeah.
our business from keeping me organized and staying on top of it to now it's overwhelming and chaotic
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have all of these different places that my data lives.
Mm,
And
yeah.
now, I mean, the more platforms you have, the more room for error because
Yeah, I guess so, right? Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I think the term I've heard is like oversubscribed almost, I think, right? Like in some cases.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I mean, I would think not we kind of entered the industry 2018-ish. You've obviously been around a bit longer, so you probably saw it more than I did, but I feel like I don't know, 10 years ago it was kind of just file logics. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. And then I felt like there was this big transition that happened kind of around that 2018-19 into the pandemic where, okay, there's Filogic, but then all the other submission platforms came into the market, Velocity, Finmo, Boss, Scarlet. And then with
Or, yeah.
all those, there was open APIs. So then, platforms like Blue could come along and then people started using Calendly. And so then there was this big explosion and a lot of excitement. And so the pendulum kind of swung the other way. Hey, all these different tools we could use. I feel like the pendulum's starting to swing back a bit where people are like, okay, too far, too many things. I need to
True.
simplify. Do you kind
Yeah,
of feel that too a bit? I've been feeling that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of
Yeah.
the first questions I have, and when we do have a new client, is what are you doing right now?
Yeah.
And I would say more often than not, I'm in the position then to kind of advise and ask further questions of, but why are you doing that? And what benefit is it bringing to you?
Yeah.
And why are you doing it over here when you could do it over here with all of this other stuff that you're doing anyway?
Yeah.
So
And what kind of responses do you usually get to that, right? Like, I think you obviously ask good questions of like, okay, what value is this tool that you're paying for actually driving? What do you typically see in a typical business? How do people usually respond to that?
generally the response is either A, I don't know how to move it,
Okay.
or B,
Yeah.
I don't want to move it.
Why
Because
not?
it is
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
big undertaking, right? Like
Yeah.
taking data from somewhere else and learning. Now you need to learn I mean, maybe you don't need to learn a whole new CRM again, but you need to learn this aspect over here.
Yeah.
And change is hard.
Yeah. Right.
We just generally don't want to do it, right?
No, it's such a good point. It's like, I think anything, there's so much momentum just to keep doing what we've always been doing. There's always, right? Like it's just human nature, right? Where it's like, if I don't have to switch, I won't switch. And I think
Well,
it's,
absolutely. And I mean, being brokers, being independent contractors, I'm only going to be making money if those deals are being done.
yeah,
If I'm working on my CRM or if I'm working on moving data from one place to another, that's not bringing revenue in physically right now.
yeah,
So I can see that it does go to the bottom of the list when clients' needs need to be met. There's deals that need to be submitted. There's docs that need fulfillment. There's lender conditions to be dealt with. Those are all active live things. I have a very tight timeline. Maybe moving my data isn't be high on the priority list today.
yeah,
And then a year goes by and here we are again.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think honestly, that's why services like what you guys have is so essential because like me, you, anybody will never convince a broker otherwise, and I don't plan to, I don't want to because I don't think that's a winning argument ever, right? Yeah, when the phone rings, when the realtor or the client calls, you're going to pick that up. And any broker who doesn't is just not going to have, a successful business, I guess. Right. And so telling them, no, actually ignore the realtor's phone call, ignore the client's phone call, and move data around is a losing argument. Right. And so, but recognizing that, hey, there's still value in that. And if I can work with team members or virtual team members, whatever it might be, to do these things for me, I can still accrue those benefits to my business without slowing things down.
A great point that like we run into a ton is brokers who have been in the industry a long time, and maybe they go from expert to a new CRM or a new platform, and they haven't updated their data. So nothing is, funded or completed. And now you have to clean up your data. And we run into this all the time. And it's so unrealistic for me to give you a spreadsheet and say, here is 2,000 lines of data. Can you tell me what's closed? Because nobody's going to do it. That is
no one's ever.
A project that will never get done. So our team actually started working with brokers in that scenario, cleaning up their data month by month. Instead of giving for an entire year, essentially. But instead of giving you 2,000 lines worth of data and asking you to do this for many hours, and who knows how long that's going to take, if we do it month by month, then it's a smaller section of data that I need your eyes on for like 10 or 15 minutes a month.
Yeah, right.
It's super manageable. Who has
I could do that.
15 minutes a month? Yeah.
And it's 15 minutes, and okay, it'll take 5 years, I guess, those 15 minutes once, whatever, but then, hey, you're up to speed. And it's a really good point, I guess, right? And this maybe goes back to how we make tech easier, to my original question of how do we make that adoption easier? It's just finding those like bite-sized wins, I think, are so important, right? Because if you're going to just like come and, it's like a staircase almost, right? Where it's like you need to get to the second story and there's one step, no one's going to has that long of legs, right? But if you can find a way to whatever, chisel it out and go step, not only can I actually do that, but also every step, it's like there's that little bit of like that dopamine hit of like, oh, I just accomplished something, right? I'm excited about this, right? Do you kind of see that too? And people
100%, especially when brokers move into a new CRM and they get overwhelmed with so many options and so many things it can do. And when your options are that endless, truly, where do you start? So we start with
like
cleaning up
paralysis,
your data.
right?
Totally. So cleaning up your data and post-close. Once you see that that's working and those emails are coming back and clients are responding to you about their renewals, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I can trust this and I know it works. What else does it do?
Yeah.
And then we do a live deal campaign or a pre-approval or leads or an application. And we kind of slowly take those campaigns on one by one. And it's a lot more manageable than saying, here are 12 campaigns. They all work. Don't forget to turn them on.
Yeah. Here are your 2,000 deals that you have that you don't know if the status is right. We're going to throw them into a system with 12 active campaigns and good luck.
It's going to be fine.
No. And I think that's a good point, because I think also from like the tech person's perspective, I'll speak for myself, sometimes you fall into that trap. It's like, look, we've built all these amazing things. It can do 12 campaigns, and it doesn't have to just be limited to 1 month's worth. We couldn't do 2,000 deals, but that's sometimes not the point. Well, it isn't the point, right? The point isn't, how cool and what's this, very fancy thing and all the fancy things it can do. Kind of goes back to what you're saying earlier. At the end of the day, all that matters is, hey, what value is this driving to my business, right? What's actually being valuable?
What's being valuable and what is important right now? Now, we need to start marketing to your post-close deals, because that's just silly not to.
Yeah.
So we need to start somewhere and kind of take it, like to your point, slowly, step by step. Mm-hmm. Yes, your CRM can do all of these amazing things, and it's going to help your business. We don't need to do them all today.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's
not
going to work.
It's just not going to work. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And I think to that point, I guess just another question for you with, you talk about, okay, what's actually valuable, this whole theme of what's actually valuable. I think it is, for me right now, a big thing I'm thinking a lot about as we get, even more tech thrown at us. We are hearing a lot about AI things, and, it can be AI, it could be something else. But maybe to that point, when when you, I guess specifically, maybe I'll ask you and your business, and when you are working with brokers, like when a a broker comes to you, I don't know if this is a common scenario, you can tell me, and they're like, hey, I just heard about this fancy new tool. Can you help me? How do you kind of, I guess, work through that to say, okay, what does this tool do, and how is it actually helpful? I guess situation come up, and how do you kind of think through those situations if it does, or does it
I
not?
mean,
Yeah,
I mean, new CRMs come around a lot, or new tools within CRMs. Like obviously, everybody's always adjusting, adapting, and
okay,
upgrading their systems.
yeah,
I mean, you and I have been friends a long time. I think you very much know my personality, that I'm only super comfortable with something once I fully understand it. So
mm,
I would say there's definitely a bit of skepticism that comes to me personally when a new system comes out, or a new upgrade, or a new feature. I want to know all about it. How does it work? Why does it work? When would it not work? Why would it not work? I want to know all of the ins and outs of it.
yeah,
And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that there's a trust in me that the broker
mm,
says, hey, this is a new feature, go make it work. Well, I'm
yeah,
only going to say that it works if I believe it works. And generally that comes to me personally with asking a lot of questions and trying it and testing it and learning about it. So
yeah,
I'm generally more interested in figuring
yeah.
it out before anything else.
Well, yeah, I want to double click maybe a little bit into that like figure out process. Like you talk about, asking questions and trying things. Like what does that look like practically, I guess? Because I think that's a situation a lot of brokers listening are in right now, where it's like I'm hearing all these new tools, but how do I know what's actually legit, what's actually going to help me? I think it's very similar to that figuring out process you just talked about. Like, so you say ask questions, who are you asking questions to, or like trying it out? Are you like signing up for a trial for yourself and putting like your mom in as a sample client to see like the type of, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right example, but you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing practically to really try and figure out these things that you described?
I guess I can answer it from my perspective versus,
Yeah.
maybe a broker who's currently listening. But from my perspective, I'm figuring out, who do I ask? I want to go to support. Who supports this company? How long have they been doing it? What
Mm,
can they tell me about it? And I think I've been in this industry long enough and on this side of things to ask a little bit, further questions, because I've run into things before.
mm.
When you and I first started working together, I asked a lot of questions.
Sure. Yeah.
How does
Yeah.
this work? But why does this work? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I probably threw you off a little bit because you probably weren't expecting me to ask so many questions.
No comment. No comment. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough,
Yeah.
fair
Yeah.
enough.
No, got, um, okay.
But I
Interesting.
guess
Yeah.
from
Go
the
ahead.
from the
Yeah.
broker's side, I think we get asked a ton. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. If you're going to ask a broad question about a variety of CRMs, ask people who work in all of the CRMs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are probably the same. You can answer a lot of questions about a lot of different CRMs because we're in this side. So there's got to be a lot of noise, especially from the broker side of, where should I go? And you can ask an opinion of 5 different people and you're going to get 5 different answers. And probably all 5 different answers are very correct
Yeah.
because everybody's going to have different needs. So
Mm,
if you're
sure.
unsure, I would say go to the source.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I guess, yeah, just to push on that further, like, okay, you talk about these tech tools and we can talk about CRMs or otherwise. And, a lot of them like to lead with features, right? They like to say, hey, we can do this fancy thing. But for you being on the other side, yeah, sure, features are cool. But what it actually seems like for you and what's important to you and when brokers come and ask you is the people behind it, right? Or maybe the company behind it. And I guess why is that? I mean, like, do you feel that that's a better indicator than the features themselves? Like, why was that, the place that you think you landed on as, the best place to go to really figure out these types of things?
Well, a
Does that
feature
make
is great.
sense?
And if it works,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great point. I guess that's where I go because a feature is awesome. If it doesn't
Mm.
work, or I want to change it, or I want to, in my humble opinion, make it better, or I want to change something about this feature, where do I go?
Yeah.
Is there
Okay.
somebody, or am I on my own? Which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a pretty fair comment. And there's a ton of different platforms, CRMs, tools out there that don't have support. And I'm
Yeah.
left to figure it
Yeah.
out on my own, which sometimes I do and sometimes no.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. No, I think it's such a good point. And I think, again, we're guilty of this where, sometimes, any platform, I think it's, you think you're a product company, and we are to a degree, but there's also the huge service component. I think especially for mortgage brokers in this industry, I think we're all in the service industry at the end of the day, right? And I think that
Totally. Yeah.
that's, I think for any broker out there who's listening, they know that, hey, service is so important, and probably for, their tech tools to succeed, service is going to be a key part of that. So it makes a ton of sense. Listen, we're kind of getting close to time here, and this just kind of
Yeah.
flew by. I think there was other things we wanted to get to, but we just kind of started rattling things off, and I actually learned some cool stuff from you, so I appreciate that. I guess I guess just to wrap up, I guess maybe this question I like to ask sometimes, like, what are you thinking about right now that maybe you think no one else is talking about, right? What's maybe a trend, or maybe something that's happening in the market, maybe tech or non-tech related? I'm not gonna box you in on the tech side, but in the mortgage industry, let's try and limit it to that. What do you think something that's happening on the ground with the brokers that you're talking to it's not getting enough airwaves? What should we be paying attention to?
I think you're going to see kind of in a broad scope, I think you're going to see the pendulum swing back. I know we kind of touched on it earlier about email marketing versus mail versus, different types of marketing.
Yes.
I've definitely been in the industry to see this pendulum swing back and forth. And I think we're going away from so many email campaigns. And I think you're going to see more physical mail go back out. In what capacity that looks like is probably going to be pretty broad. But I do think you're going to see more of it.
Interesting. Okay. And if I was a broker listening, I want to take advantage of that trend, I should be, getting on the mail marketing, but also, I guess, in the context, maybe, try to make it stand out, make it not look like another bill in the mail too, right?
And just a different type of marketing, right? Like, again, I think you're going to see more of that, especially with the banks competing so much more with brokers now, that you kind of need to stand out even just a little bit further and humanize yourself a little bit more and have that personal connection.
What about the one I've been talking about? I think it's similar to what you're saying, is like in person. Like, I feel AI, deep fakes, this and that. Like, I don't think it's there yet, but I feel like I've talked to a couple people, like, we're going to like trade shows again and we're doing this. Are you starting to see that and feel that a bit too?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm just like, I'm physically going to give you a gift versus sending you an email that says, congratulations, click on my Google link. You're going to see that more. And I do think it's not always possible that a broker can physically go to somebody's house to congratulate them on their new home purchase. As much as we would love that, it's not realistic. But a handwritten note in the mail is going to leave that same impression.
Yeah, it's going to have that impact. Awesome. Well, listen, Sarah, I really appreciate your time. This has been fun, like I said. And
thank you.
If anyone listening is like interested in maybe chatting further or learning about your services, where can they reach you? Or would be the best place?
Yeah, absolutely. We're obviously on social media. westernbrokerservices.ca is our website. I have my link in there. You can book directly on there as well. Me, book a call. Happy to chat further. And thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah. Bye for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.